Hey, welcome to the Cheryl Show. Today is September 19, 2019, and the question to ask yourself today is, what do I do if I'm addicted to opioids or fentanyl, or frankly any drug, and my family is in law enforcement, or we're in the upper echelon, or there's no way that I would consider telling parents or friends, or everyone would judge me. What would I do then? And hey, Enrique. And so I asked that question because, hey, Brett, because I think that along with the stigma of drugs, and I'm the first one to say that, and what I learned yesterday with Stan, and when he was telling his story, was how long a problem can actually go on where the person with the problem and the parents of the person don't say anything because there's the stigma between the relationship between them. So, I mean, it's like this dynamic. And so yesterday I learned a lot actually doing that interview of signs to look for drug abuse, and also to not be afraid to say something to someone regardless of how you grew up and who you are and where you live and what kind of status you are, what kind of job you hold. It doesn't really matter. So I'm here with...
Forgot my name?
No.
Steve Kendall.
Today we are talking with Steve Kendall, and I don't know if I want to say about your class action right now. That you're the only person that's...
About what?
Are you the only... Let me just say this. I'm here with Steve Kendall for him to tell a little bit of his story, kind of from the beginning of when he became addicted to opioids, and a little bit, a lot of things. I think people will learn a lot of different things throughout this story, but Steve is the founder of FightOpioids.us, and it's a website that you can go to, sign up to be part of the class action. You can donate. He's got different fundraisers that he's raising money for the opioid that turns into fentanyl, heroin, the whole thing, addiction. And so I just wanted to kind of hear his whole story and see who we can help today. No, of course not. I didn't forget your name.
Thanks, Cheryl. First of all, I'd like to thank Cheryl for taking the time this week from her daily show, which all of us enjoy. I watch it daily myself, to bring attention to the worst crisis we have right now in the country. And we're never going to slow this crisis down, or it's not going to get any better until we make it a safe topic for everybody to discuss openly. You know, I call it the elephant in the room. You know it's in there, but nobody wants to let it out. Opioid addiction has absolutely no social boundaries whatsoever. I personally grew up in an upper income home. We had a home in Albany, Maryland, one in Annapolis. My dad was the East Coast distributor for Easy Go golf carts. I was a member of several country clubs. My mom was active in our Opioid church. My dad employed most of the people that went to high school with me, and they worked for his company afterwards. You know, I had a real good upbringing with two parents. I couldn't have had two better parents. So don't kid yourself thinking this can't happen to you. You're only one injury or one surgery away. And I'm going to kind of skip through a lot of my surgeries only because a lot of them are very detailed. But what I've found out through 17 years of opioid addiction, that the magnitude and the control of these new drugs are like 100 times stronger than what they were years ago. I shattered my foot playing basketball in college, and also separated my shoulder. I went through 2 different surgeries where I was on morphine and Demerol, and you know, once the recovery period was over, I was able to stop within weeks. I also went through 2 very long surgeries after an 18-month stay in the hospital. I had ulcerative colitis, and I was actually in Montgomery General Hospital for 8 months, hooked to morphine and Demerol drips every 2.5 hours, along with Valium to keep me completely still to have my colon reside. after 18 months of those drugs, I was detoxed in less than 2 weeks. The reason I bring this up is once the pins in my foot came out in 2004. And when that happened, I was introduced to oxycodone. When I had to go through a series, my foot got infected with something called osteomyelitis. It's a bone disease that there is no cure for. I was on heavy antibiotics and they put me on steroids, and I went from 245 pounds of being in relatively great shape to 410 pounds. The pain was severe because they kept cutting into my foot trying to cut the bone away, and then I had to wear something called an external fixator, which is drilled through your bones, and it's designed to keep your foot in the line. I got so addicted to Oxy, and because my tolerance in my body was so strong for years ago, being on the morphine and Demerol, that the amount of Oxy that it required to give me any pain relief was 240 milligrams every 6 hours, which are 8 30-milligram tablets, along with 4 milligram Dilaudid injectables.
So let me ask you something real quick. Do you feel like before you had the foot infection, you were addicted to the other pain medication?
No, Cheryl, I actually stopped after my last stomach surgery completely, and I came out of the hospital at 168 pounds, skinny as a rail, and actually trained with the U.S. bobsled team for several years before the '88 Olympics, and I never touched opiates again until the pins came out in my foot, and I was put on Oxy, and it almost, bam, immediately. It was more than pain relief. I had to have the drug. The pull to that drug is, I'm a very powerful guy, or always have been physically. Oxycodone dropped me to my knees like that. One of my biggest things that I state in all the comments I made, had Superman been real, opiates would have dropped into his knees faster than kryptonite. You have no idea. That's why it's so good that people are coming out with all these plant-based remedies and other things like CBD oil to try to combat the fact of this crisis. And as I told you this morning, Cheryl, I just did research on a drug called Mesivia, which the FDA approved here in the worst drug crisis we possibly have, that is 1,000 times stronger than morphine, 10 times stronger than fentanyl, and 50 to 80 times stronger than heroin.
And this is
No, the drug was approved in 2018, but now they're going to start distributing it.
And it's called Mesivia.
It's called Mesivia, and all you do is place it under your tongue and it dissolves. Well, in my opinion, with what's happening with fentanyl, if this stuff is 10 times stronger than fentanyl, just put a gun to your head and pull the trigger. I mean, this is ridiculous. Why would they approve something when we're in the worst crisis medically we've ever had within our borders with this opiate crisis?
My comment on that is that they're trying to find something other than the Oxy, if everyone's going to be, but they're making it stronger. They're just going to kill people with that.
I couldn't believe it when I read the article. I just could not believe it.
Hey, Bruce. So before you continue, I just want to throw something out there for everyone who watches or hops on or continues to watch, and that is, and this is just something because is anyone watching this right now currently taking Oxycodone for any reason? And that's the question I want to ask. So this show is about enhancing social connectedness, and part of that means we get really personal. So if you're going to bother watching this show, I'm going to ask you, if you're watching the show right now and you're currently taking Oxycodone or Oxycontin for any reason under prescription, and I'm not asking if you're addicted, I'm just saying, are you currently taking it? I would just be curious, out of the thousands of views that we're going to get, how many people are willing to say, yeah, I'm taking it for a surgery, yeah, I'm taking it for this? Because right now, well, 99% of people who do surgeries, have surgeries, are on it. And 1 out of 3, according to the stats, will become addicted. Anyway, so you had the foot thing.
I had the foot surgery. Finally, the infection got so bad I had to have my leg amputated. Actually, they wanted to amputate my foot, but there's actually no prosthetic device that clamps on the bottom of your leg, so I had a below the knee amputation. And it's been fine since then, thank God. But I want to tell people that have orthopedic problems, as I continue into my story, I currently have 2 shoulders that are bone against bone, very little cartilage. I have severe arthritis through my body. I have an artificial joint in my right knee, which is loose, I need a knee replacement. And I'm opiate free, and I'll go into how I got that way, and I can tell you I've never felt better in my life. I intend to have that surgery done here in the near future as soon as they can come up with a way that I can have nerve blocks after the surgery versus taking it. Actually, I'm going to try to have that filmed live on Cheryl's show so that people can see you can have major surgeries done without taking the drug. Anyway, I stayed on opiates after my leg was amputated and continued it. And what I found out, and I didn't find out till later, you get to a certain point, it's called opioid intoxication. That's when in your brain, there's the sensors that actually disperse pain get so saturated that no matter how many more opiates you take, it actually has no effect. And of course you keep taking more, and that's why people are dying, when in fact it actually works in reverse. Once you get to opioid saturation, you actually have more pain than you did if you weren't on the drug. And I'm not speaking just on statistics I've heard. I'm speaking from myself. I was, as I said, taking 240 milligrams of oxycodone every 6 hours, and I had 4 milligram Dilaudid injectables to inject in my thigh for breakthrough pain. So, anyway.
When you went to the hospital to get the amputation, or before the amputation, or when you were dealing with the foot, you said that none of the nurses would give you the amount of prescribed oxycodone that you were getting.
2 different times when I was hospitalized in Mount Vernon, at Inova Mount Vernon Hospital. The head nurses had to come in and disperse my medication because nurses refused to give me that dosage. Anybody that's watching, or anybody that knows anything about drugs or opiates or narcotics, are probably saying, hey, this guy's full of shit. There's no way in the world anybody can take that kind of dose and kill an elephant. Well, they're right. But my body had built up such a tolerance to narcotics back through the 8-month period when I was hooked to the morphine and Demerol. It's like muscle memory. For you people that work out, you know that once you get to a certain plateau, and let's say you lay off for a year or so, your body's remarkable. It snaps back like that, and you can build back up to where you left off really quick. Well, it's the same thing with addiction to opioids or any kind of narcotics. You build up a plateau, and you might lay off of it for 10 years, or like alcoholism. But man, as soon as you go back, boom, you're going to be right back to where you were. And, they could not keep me medicated because my tolerance was so high. But I needed the medicine. It wasn't, it wasn't about pain. One thing about addiction, you're not going to get better. No treatment center is going to do a damn thing for you until you do one thing. You've got to be honest with yourself. When you're addicted to anything, whether it's alcohol, opiates, you're the best bullshitter in the world. But the only person you're bullshitting is yourself. And until you're honest about that, you're not going to get better. You know, people constantly hear, oh, he hit rock bottom. Oh, he's going to come. Now, it's when you finally decide, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I want to get my life back. Not until that point, there's in a treatment center in the world, I don't give a damn how much money you have or where you go. You're not going to get any better.
So one of the things you said was if you would have known that the amputation wouldn't have been such wasn't good, you were probably fearful of the amputation, thinking your life was going to be forever changed and it would never be the same, you'd never be, you know, like the whole idea of how was that going to be.
Yeah, Cheryl, if I would have known how well prosthetic leg works, I would have saved years of opioid abuse, and I wouldn't have gone from 245 to 410. I mean, I'll post some photos of me. It was terrible. Just imagine taking the Goodyear blimp and turning it up this way. That's what I had become. And, you know, I couldn't stand myself. That's why I listen to 2 songs every day. One is Cold Little Heart. It's the theme from Big Little Lies. It talks about somebody that really is unhappy with himself. And then my upbeat song, which actually the song that's on my website, is No Thing on Me. It's the cocaine song from the movie Superfly back in the 70s. That song's about somebody that was addicted to cocaine and now is drug-free and his life's a natural high. It's a very upbeat song. It's for people out there suffering opioid addiction or any kind of addiction. You ought to listen to it. You really feel good afterwards.
So once they amputated and you were so after the amputation, then did they still have you on oxycodone, or you were addicted at that point? So.
Well, you know what? I was addicted to the drug. Almost immediately after my amputation, I didn't have any pain in that leg. But you think I was going to tell the doctors that? Oh, no. Oh, doc, it hurts so bad. Oh, I can't step on it. Oh, when I step in my prosthesis. I mean, you do whatever it takes to get the drug. And then, of course, you know, this was true. Back then, before I went through mind therapy with myself not to feel pain, which I'll get into later, you know, I did have the 2 problems. I mean, this is real. You know, especially for people that have severe arthritis, they'll know what I'm talking about when it rains. You know, the barometric pressure closes the gap in your joints and you're in a lot more pain. So, you know, it's not only the leg amputation, and I started telling the doctors, oh, my shoulders hurt so bad, oh, my knee. It was, and I had so many orthopedic problems, the doctors couldn't argue with me. I mean, there wasn't a doctor in the country that could have been brought into court and said, well, you prescribed this guy too many opiates. They would have pulled up my chart. Actually, to skip ahead, when the FBI actually arrested me, one of the comments to me was, you know, we turned your file into, you know, whoever their doctors are, and their answer was, they would have had you on this, maybe more opiates. So,
Why?
Because if you look at my orthopedic chart,
I would see that
me
must
as
be
a whole,
painful.
oh yeah, everything that I currently have, the average person, and if they went into the doctor,
24-hour pain.
yeah, they would have them on opiates. And so, you know, I was actually, I don't know if I convinced myself or, you know, it was just a pull. My whole point of this is, for years after going over major surgeries, being on the old type narcotics, which are addictive, do not get me wrong, Percocet, Percodan, morphine, Demerol, they're very addictive drugs.
What about Dilaudid?
Dilaudid.
So basically, the foot thing happened, the prosthetic happened, and then what? That was the years of addiction.
That was the years of addiction that kept me on the amount of opiates I had. Then I got involved with a group of people that all have prosthetic legs that we were trying to find a way to raise money for children that could not afford prosthetic legs or had insurance. And it just so happens I was in the credit card processing business, which I still am. And one of my clients' sons had a heroin addiction. And I was asked to speak to him. And here I am on opiates, and I'm being asked to talk to him. By the way, because this came up, I think, in one of Cheryl's shows or somebody was talking, you would have never known that I was on opiates. Now, because I had gained so much weight and heavy, one thing that people would notice is I might be talking and all of a sudden, like, doze off for a second. But, people said, well, Kendall's overweight, he's in bad health right now, blah, blah,
That's
blah.
actually a sign I see when people are on opiates. I'm not talking about even abusing them, just normal, like recovering from surgery. First thing I noticed, they fall asleep in the middle of any conversation, any time of the day.
Right.
And that's just like the nature of the drug or something.
Correct. But I functioned, as long as I had exact enough opiates to get me through that day, most people would have never known. But anyway, I tried to talk to this young man who was on heroin, and it got to the point that I found out in the area I grew up with in Silver Spring that kids were dying. I didn't realize this every week from heroin overdoses because they had been on oxy, couldn't get oxy, and it sent them to heroin or fentanyl. And I mean, I'm talking about, then I started noticing there's 1 or 2 kids dying a week.
But were they kids that were addicted from drug abuse or from surgery?
Well, you
don't really know.
In young kids, well, I think I can pretty much answer that question. In young kids, it's being the worst thing a parent can do if they're on any kind of opiates is to leave it where it can be, somebody can get it out of the medicine cabinet or whatever. Because kids are taking this stuff to school, they're passing it around, and that's one part of where the addiction problem is coming from. But the other is, they just get injured, they get put on it, they get hooked on it, then they have to have it, then they go out in the street and it's not available, so they end up shooting heroin, or now, God forbid, people are dropping dead from fentanyl. 200 people a day die in our country now from overdose due to opiates. So anyway, I'm going to cut this story and make it fairly short. This young man would have died of a heroin overdose. I called a doctor I knew that did detox, and I found out a way to detox him with heroin using my own oxycodone. I did that by putting him in a hotel room and staying with me for a 14-day period. And afterwards, he was really doing well. A week went by, and all of a sudden, his best friend died of a fentanyl overdose. That very same day, I came home, and my partner at the time in the credit card business told me one of our best clients had gone to Annapolis to put his boat in the water, and his son was found dead at 27 with a needle stuck in his arm from a heroin overdose. So I called up the young man I detoxed who ran around with a group of these kids that were dying, and I said, look, actually I went back to my prosthetic group and said, look guys, we all have prescription for oxy. I know how we can raise money to help the kids that need prosthetics and at the same time save lives. So I actually opened up a little illegal clinic to detox kids off heroin that wanted to get off it, not somebody that just wanted to get high. It's a 14-day program. If somebody decided not to either seek getting into rehab after the 14-day period, we no longer, provide them the drug. We collected, we charge people for that, but we put every dime of it in the bank so we could show that we were actually, I knew that what I was doing was illegal, and I knew there was a good chance that I would be caught, so at least I wanted to show I was not trying to hide what I was doing. So I did get caught. One of the guys who was detoxed from heroin, his wife actually died from fentanyl, and the FBI came in to bust him, and he turned us over, our whole organization. And you know, the FBI wanted three things from me.
But before you say that, let me just say, you were not like the lone ranger out there doing it. There were people involved with you. There were doctors helping. There were other people that, as a group, were trying to save these kids, right?
Cheryl, I say this in one sense, being proud of what we did, because how many people can say they actually saved somebody's life? I mean, that's a good feeling. In the 2.5 years we did this, the deaths in that area, all of a sudden they were just like every month instead of like 3 a week. I mean, it was an amazing thing. But, you know, instead of looking at what we did positive, you know, the FBI only cared about two things. They wanted to know who were the doctors that helped me. I could have not spent 1 minute in jail had I, you know, told them who were the doctors that helped. Because we had doctors that evaluated some of these people that were having a rough time, that were really trying to kick it, that wouldn't provide their names, but they were providing their service once a week, which, you know, I give these guys a lot of credit and I have a lot of respect. And I'm sure they were worried when I got arrested, but, you know, I'm the one that created this, no one else. This was my idea, this was my plan, and I was going to be the one that was going to pay for it. And I'll tell you something, I don't regret one bit of it. I know the people we helped, and I know the lives we saved.
So what did you do with the money?
We dispersed it among 8 families to get prosthetics for their kids, majority of it. Now, the portion that we spent was my prescriptions were only Blue Cross Blue Shield. I had a great policy, but they would only cover 1 prescription a month for my oxy, because I was prescribed 240 tablets a week. 240 tablets of 30 milligram oxycodone. If insurance aren't paying for it, it costs over 400. I think around $468. And then on top of that, my Dilaudid prescriptions would be covered once a month. But that was another. It was costing me $375 3 times a week to pick up my opiates that I was addicted to.
So were you currently addicted at this time you were helping?
Oh, absolutely. But what I did is I actually stopped taking the oxycodone and just gave myself the Dilaudid injectables, because we needed the oxy to supply these kids so they wouldn't shoot heroin. So actually when I went
That is a crazy amount of medicine that you were even being dispersed and given by the doctors in general.
There's no question. If a doctor wrote that prescription today with what's going on, they'd be put in jail. I mean, I don't know if I told you, that's 240 tablets a week, 30 milligram oxy, and then 140 4 milligram Dilaudid injectables a week.
I mean, Mike Perez says 240 pills a week, but, well, pills a week, yes, because you're saying it's really the prescription that you were given was 240 milligrams every 6 hours, which were 8 pills every 6 hours.
Correct.
Which, yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah, there were 8 pills every 6 hours, and I was told I had malabsorption, so I was told to crush them. So I was actually swallowing 240 milligrams of powder oxycodone every 6 hours. Now, sometimes I didn't take 4 doses because sometimes I would sleep through it, but that was the prescribed amount that I took. And was it Mike that asked that question?
Yeah, Mike Perez.
And Mike, that went on for over 10 years. So, you know, as I said, had I known what I found out later, you know, about opioid saturation, it might have woke me up, but I doubt it. I'm a firm believer when you get to that point, you really got to be put in long-term rehab if you've accepted the fact you need to change. Because I mentioned this to Cheryl the other day that I don't think if I had not gone to prison that I would have been able to stop taking opioids. I honestly don't.
So let's go to that. So you get arrested. You don't turn anyone in.
I get arrested. I was charged because I've always had a handgun permit because I've always owned businesses where I carry a lot of cash. I had a handgun permit, or had one. Now that I'm a felon, I do not. I had one for 42 years, and when the FBI, you talk about a bad dream, wake up in the morning, have 14 FBI agents pointing M14s or whatever they are at your head, telling you not to move. But I happened to have my briefcase on the bed when they came in. They opened my briefcase, and in my briefcase was my legal handgun with my gun permit, but I had a bottle of oxycodone, which was in my name. It was a legal prescription, but they charged me conspiracy to sell oxycodone with a handgun. And I was facing 35 years in jail, and I'd never been in trouble my entire life. So, all they wanted to do was they wanted the other people involved, the doctors that helped me, and where the money went. And if I would have told them those things, I wouldn't have spent a day in jail. But, it turns out I had a good lawyer, and I ended up, because of my medical condition I was in, actually Judge Tringa didn't even want to send me to jail. He wanted to give me home detention. But the U.S. attorney made such a big deal out of the fact that, I should have gotten 35 years, that he was pissed off that I only got 26 months. But Judge Tringa insisted that I was sent to a medical facility versus a normal prison. So I spent 26 months at Devon's Federal Medical Center in, I think it's called Erie, or it's A-Y-E-R, Massachusetts. And that, pretty much.
So when they sent you to prison, did they send you with prescriptions for pain medication?
Well, no. The federal marshals came and picked me up actually the day I was supposed to. Let me back up. Judge Tringa gave me a year to have some stomach surgery I needed and my knee fixed. And what happened is I went in to have some of the preliminary tests done, and I had a pulmonary embolism and ended up being in the hospital for almost 6 months. While I was in there, I developed atrophy in my legs, and I had to go to a rehab center to learn to walk again. So by the time I got out of there, my year was almost up, and the federal marshals came in my house one day and just said, "Hey, Kendall, your time's up. Now it's time for federal time." So I was flown to Massachusetts from Manassas Airport, and when I got there, there was a team of doctors waiting because they had a list of all my medication I've been on for years. And of course, Dr. Murray, who was my physician there assigned to me, immediately said, "Come on, Kendall, tell me the truth. There's no way in God's world you were able to take this many opiates." So it took 2 hours for him to even give me a dose. They don't give injections in federal prison, and they just did not, because I was honest with them. I told them how long I'd been off the oxycodone because we were using it for these kids, that he put me on 100 milligrams of morphine 4 times a day. And
were you in pain? But you couldn't just stop what you were taking, is basically what he knew. He knew you were addicted.
Right.
You were in no pain, right?
Well, not with 100 milligrams.
No, I mean, like, were you in legitimate pain? Or
Cheryl,
was he giving it to you because he's like, well, we got to detox you by giving you morphine?
I'm having a hard time answering that question because I don't know if it was more that I knew I needed the drug or if I was in a lot of pain, because as I sit here and tell you, it's been 28 months. My orthopedic problems are actually worse than they were when I was in prison, even though I lost 150 pounds. and I'm opioid free and I feel great. So I think it was more my body needed the drug.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot tell you the gravitational pull you have to this. I just, God forbid, I hope it never happens to you or anybody else that
It's like
listening.
lie, cheat, steal, whatever, you're gonna get that. You know, like the body's like desire. Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, to make a long story short, I find out that one of the reasons Judge Tringa sent me to Devon's was the medical issues that I wasn't able to take care of here before I finally went. They were supposed to take care of. And I found out they weren't going to take care of any of them. So there I was laying there in a hospital unit downstairs, 410 pounds, horrible health, worried about what they're going to do. All I could think about is, oh my God, what are they going to do about my opiate situation? Yeah. That's all I could think about. And, it's funny because when you're in prison, believe me, nobody's friendly. For you people that are out there, think that you know it all and want to stay on opiates, I'm telling you, you got two things ahead of you. Either prison or the morgue. Trust me, neither one of those are very good options. I had a nurse come in one day and said, Mr. Kendall, you're never going to get any better if you just lie there. At least get up and sit in the chair. And you know what? She smiled at me. And for some odd reason, that smile triggered up something in me. And I saw that there was a bike down in the medical center. And you know what? The next day I got up and started riding the bike. I took net bags and had them filled with water to lift his weights because they do not let you have any access to lifting weights in federal prison. And I started doing push-ups, I started working out, and I went to Dr. Murray after Dr. Murray actually had to do an evaluation on me, and he said to me, Kendall, he said, you went through the opioid saturation part, and he said, why don't I get you in a yoga class? Why don't you try, since you're exercising, some yoga, and let's find some alternative ways to get you off opiates. Now, being a good opiate head, I was like, right, doc, I'll stay on the morphine. And then, sometimes I can be a fairly smart guy. I started thinking about what he said about opioid saturation. And I actually realized that I was still in a lot of pain, but I thought I would try some of the things. So I actually started taking yoga. And then I realized, I remember a book or something Chuck Norris talked about years ago when he was fighting. He said, you can train your mind to believe anything. So I got some literature on it, and I started telling myself every day, Cheryl, no pain. But I didn't just say the words, I thought it. And it's funny, after about 2 months of doing that every day, I woke up one morning when it was raining, and all of a sudden, normally when my joints would be so painful, I didn't feel any pain. And I thought to myself, damn, I must be a good salesman. I stopped taking the morphine at that point. And I got involved in the legal, and I was offered a chance to go to law school and take some law classes while I was there. And I researched the opioid crisis. Actually, there was a case filed against one of my inmates because he actually ran a pill mill, a pain clinic, and it was the state of Boston versus Purdue Pharma and all the people that are in my current case and this doctor. So I read this document and got so interested in it, I signed up for every one of the law classes and legal research. And from that point forward, I had 39 inmates in my legal research class, all doing the research for me on all the cases around the country.
So is this available to anyone who's in federal prison?
Well, all federal prisons have the law library.
Okay.
And the system on the law library is called L. We all call it our girlfriend, L. And there's a class on how to use it where you can go into every circuit and pull up any case that's filed in the country. So what my class did for me to prepare for the suit that I eventually wrote for my class grade is they pulled up all the information on every case and everybody involved in the case around the country we could get our hands on, because you're not allowed the internet in prison. They won't let you can't Google, so we had to rely on actually cases that were filed around the country. And
So in the process, you ended up reading every opioid-related case in the country.
Yes, that's correct. But I want to go back and state something that a lot of people will, unless you're religious, unless you really have a belief in God, you're going to think I'm nuts. And the people that do, this is a factual statement that I kind of skipped that in the beginning when I started telling this prison story. Is I laid in bed, and when I realized they weren't going to take care of me medically, called my attorney back in Virginia and asked him to file a motion to have me brought back home because they weren't going to do any of the things that Judge Tringa had said they were going to do. And his answer to me over the phone was, Kendall, get them to admit they can't take care of you and I'll get you home. Well, the comment from the doctors at Devon's were, hey, we got you here and we get paid too much to keep you here. So the night I went to bed, I actually had a vision, or I guess it's not a vision, I actually was spoken to by either God or an angel or somebody and said, write your own motion. And I'd never written a motion in my life. I didn't even know what a motion was. I went back to sleep, woke up again and was told how to write it. And I took a Bic pen that had been out of ink for 4 days, one of those cheap, used to be 19-cent Bic pens, and I wrote a 10-page motion on yellow paper, which the court case is still, because it blossomed into a lot of other things, it's still in federal court in Boston now. I won that motion, and I've won every motion against the U.S. Attorney's Office since then. It's Steve Kendall versus the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and it's 18-104101 PBS. After that, I was contacted again. I mean, these visions or these words from above come every night to me at about 3 o'clock or every other night. I was told I was going to fight the opioid crisis. I was told I was going to take these law classes. And that's how this whole thing started. And all along, I'm not the most brightest guy in the world, but I've been told all along how to structurally lay this out to this point. And thank goodness I probably have some of the best research in all these companies in the country, even today. And, all we're trying to do and all that FightOpiates.us is trying to do is to bring families and members in that have actually suffered from opioid addiction. Because the different states, okay, think about this for you people that are watching. When you hear, okay, Oklahoma won $270 million, and then the judge later charged Johnson & Johnson with $572 million in their part in creating the opioid crisis in Oklahoma. Have you ever thought about it since I just mentioned it, since it's been on the news? No. That's not going to change what's happening out there.
What are they doing with the money when the state wins?
Well, the state is filing because of the added cost it costs them because of the crisis. I mean, you have the first responders, the Narcan they're giving out to people, all the different deaths and related things due to the crisis. The states have filed, and of course we never know how much it costs each state. But the point I was trying to make is, when jurors see, let's just use Virginia. Let's say it was Virginia in there. Jurors thinking, well, Virginia's trying to seek a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. But it's
people forget about it the next day. Our case,
Well, because this is probably not for you to answer, but is there a requirement that the state that wins money, and this is just a side comment, but is there a requirement that the state that wins money document and show proof to the public what they actually do with the?
no.
There's no public record of what they do with the money. So who knows what they're doing with the money?
Exactly.
They say they're starting a program. I'm not saying they're lying, but we just don't know what they're doing with the money.
Our case that we're preparing is to bring faces into the courtroom. Because believe me, you're not going to remember Oklahoma, but you're going to remember the story of Angela, which I tell constantly. 33-year-old woman, Catholic woman, married, happily married, 3 beautiful kids, never drank, never smoked, never did any drugs in her life. Hurts her back in aerobic class, gets addicted to opiates. Husband leaves her because her opiate addiction had gotten so bad. Parents put her into rehab twice. She comes out the second time. She can't get her hands on opiates. They find her dead in a hotel room. Now her parents are raising her 3 kids. That's
It's not just that. Like, there's, according to the New York Police Department, because I'm now a research junkie on it. According to the New York Police, and someone is a New York police officer, you can correct me. Like 1 out of every 5 vacant cars that they find, someone's in it overdosed on opioids or fentanyl. That's like something new. And so every single person that joins your case, they're being interviewed, they're being documented, and their story's gonna be what's going, like they're gonna be.
Exactly. Our case is to bring monetary value to families that have lost loved ones to opioid addiction, who are raising their kids' kids. It's for people that have suffered financial loss due to being addicted to opiates. I mean, I personally spent, and I have a rough calculation, I spent over $450,000 on prescriptions that weren't covered by my insurance company. You know, there's people that financially had their life ruined due to this. And there are people that are still out there suffering that want to have help that they can't financially afford. And
I have a comment about that. So, Mike, you said, can you share info about the FightOpioids.us? Yeah, it's a website, and there is also a group. So we'll definitely drop those in the I'll edit the video contents, and you'll be able to see it and get to it. If you know someone that wants to join, you go to FightOpioids.us, but we'll drop all the links to it. So my question is, I got to take the opposite side for just a minute. For just a second, though, because I know there's people watching that are just going to say what I'm saying right now. You're going to try to get monetary, reconciliation for all the money spent on drugs that the people spent of their own money because they were addicted. So, other than the people who have the loss of lives, they're taking care of their kids, their grandkids, you're saying you were out $450,000 that you decided to spend on your drugs, but I know you were overprescribed, but you got to know that there are people that are saying that side of it, right? They're saying, okay, you're wanting to, all the money that comes in from this case is to reconcile the money spent from drug addicts that became that way after the doctors gave them overprescriptions.
well, Cheryl, we all love you, but you're just getting up to date on addiction, and thank God you or your families never had to go through any of this. But, I feel they are responsible because the addictive they knew. Let's back up. The Slacker family, who are now in bankruptcy, I'm going to make it a life mission to see they're put in prison. Shit, I went to prison for trying to save lives. They should go to prison for killing people. But anyway, the addictive quality that they knew from day one when they marketed these drugs as safe, I feel they have a responsibility for the people that got addicted, not only like myself or other people that had to have this drug. This isn't a matter of, okay, we're just spending drugs to get high. Your body needs it. You need this drug. This drug takes not only control of you physically, but mentally. Your body thinks
nothing. You wake up in the morning and say, oh my God, maybe I better count my pills. Am I going to have enough to last me till Friday, till my prescription's filled? You just do not know the magnitude of what this does to you. And therefore, I think since all the companies, and it's not only the manufacturers, you know, we're going after the distributors. There's something called diversion. And diversion, and I'm going to give an example. West Virginia, there's a town of 1,200 people total. One manufacturer, and I know exactly who it was, but I'm not going to mention them because they're in my suit right now. They sent enough oxycodone to that one drugstore to supply 100,000 people. Now, that is what's called suspicious ordering, which they are required by law to monitor. Now, they knew damn well, and this wasn't a one-time thing. This went on for almost a year.
Was that the one that got busted?
Well, several of them have been busted now, but you know, these companies knew that those pills were going out into the illegal market. So it's more than just the creators of the drug. It's the distributors that, you know, let's face it. These people are making billions of dollars on Americans dying. And, you know, somebody has to bring it out into the light. But it's not only the suit that I'm trying to create to open this up. It's the fact that people, you know, if you keep sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich, this is going to continue. It's not going to slow down. And you know what? You think it might not be you? God forbid you get that injury. God forbid you get that surgery. If, you know, now, if you have a group of 5 people, 2 of them are either on opiates or have a family member they're having problems. And guess what? They don't want to talk about it because of stigma, because of embarrassment, because of just the whole thing about being an addict. This is a disease. This is like cancer. But you know, the difference between this disease and cancer is if you're diagnosed with cancer, you have the ability to try to treat it. This disease can kill you. You're just one dose away from either overdosing if you prescribe more than you should take yourself, or God forbid, these kids and people now that are having to buy these drugs on the street, all this stuff's laced with fentanyl. And, you know...
So you're partnering, I say partnering, but hooking up with finding, and people are coming to you, like programs of people who are also dealt with it, like the one you interviewed yesterday, that are all these people, like Stan Dole from yesterday, like the guy on your show from yesterday, Joey. Basically, parents and people and businessmen, businesswomen, people other than the government are basically taking it into their own hands, like you're filing class action from the people, and there's other people like just what people have heard on your show, my show, that are taking it into their own hands, realizing they can't wait for the government, they can't wait for officials, that they need to create something for themselves. So I think that's really amazing because people are bonding together, and it's starting from their own personal experience or family tragedy that they're developing new programs and recovery centers. And so you guys will hear more about any recovery centers. And the one thing I want to mention is, I know I gave you a tough question right now, but it's only because you have all this knowledge of the history of when this product was put out, when the Slacker family came up with it, and just comments of, you know, the chemical engineers that came up with the product and how they knew it was addictive, and all this stuff is actually coming out into the cases that they're filing against them now, why they're going bankrupt. But what are you doing now? The case is your primary mission to get restitution, to get money for families, people that are basically been taken down personally or family members. But what else are you doing? You're doing the t-shirt thing,
I'm
right? You're like positive stuff that's coming out of all this stuff.
I'm concentrating on my own personal health. I'm almost probably 80% of my free time when I'm not trying to bring groups in and talk to people. You know, I constantly, I'm available 24 hours a day. You want to talk about your opioid problem or something, or get some guidance and help, you know, contact my office and I'll call you back. And I'm here for you. But I'm personally working on my own health. I'm trying to get in the absolute best physical shape I can be in, because I am going to have the surgeries I need, and I am going to do it opiate free. You know, but this opiate crisis is my life right now. It's my whole mission. I'm still in the credit card processing business, but I haven't actively been out looking for new accounts, only because this is it. I mean, the Lord put me on a mission, and you know what? I think He knew I was the right guy for it. But you know, you brought up something that, and I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time, but I learned something in my live stream after listening to a couple of Cheryl's live streams when she talked with Stan. They talked about the different rehabs and how much they cost, because they're extremely expensive. Then I found out that Joey Karsick, who runs a program in Frederick, Maryland, called Crossroads Freedom Center, he has a program that for somebody who really wants help, not one of these bullshit, okay, I'm going to go to rehab to satisfy my parents or somebody else. For young men and for men, he's working on a program for women that want to come to their facility. It costs $500 a month. They don't take insurance, but that covers your housing, your food, and it's a program for not only detox of addiction from alcohol and opiates, but it's a spiritual program that teaches you about the Lord, brings God into your life, and gives you some spiritual stepping stones, so when you step back out in the world, you're not alone. Because you got God in your corner, buddy. You got a pretty big army behind you. And I definitely go into any battle with Him on my side. So you guys who are seeking a treatment center, you know, Joey has a website. It's crossroadsfreedomcenter.com, and he has a pig roast that's coming up October 5th, which I think Cheryl's covering live.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there.
That it's a fundraiser they have every year. It's a pig roast, it's a chili cook-off. They have live music, testimonials, and the money that's raised there goes to the expansion of the facility, because they're trying to add some new buildings so they can, you know, house more people that want to go into treatment.
That's a big undertaking, and that's really cheap, $500 a month per person. So there are options out there that aren't $30,000 a month, and he runs that for 1 year. Right?
Yes.
One person for 1 year.
Correct. I mean, this is a program that, you know, I'm a firm believer. Number one, as I've stated, I think 3 times through this live stream, until you're ready to be honest with yourself, it's not going to matter where you go. But because these addictive, even if you want to stop, you might have to go to 1 or 2 different facilities. It might not work the first time, but you can't give up. And I do believe you definitely have to get away from the environment that you're in now. And you know, I personally don't think a 30-day treatment's enough for somebody that's addicted to these drugs. I think 90 days is probably minimal, but at the same point, who the hell can afford it? So Joey's program, I think, is one of the best I've heard of, and I actually didn't know about it, how it actually worked, until I actually had him on my live show with the stigma yesterday. So.
Well, I wanted to just say I'm really proud of you for doing the suit, and kind of, I feel like some of your friends, some people that know you, not every single person is always going to be behind whatever you do. I know from everything I've done, it doesn't matter who you are, right? and you're still doing it, and now you've got a lot of momentum and a lot of, I would say, from all the years of being addicted and the bad things that came from those experiences, now you're doing all these amazing things and you're going to change a lot of people's lives. So you're doing the suit. You're probably going to start other businesses that are positive and that are going to help people, and you have a lot of knowledge on all these suits that you read and prepared for, and now you can connect with a bunch of people and help solve this crisis. So I think it's amazing.
Well, Cheryl, I surely try, but you know, I want to.
I mean, that's all you can do.
I want to reiterate what I said in the beginning. You have no idea the magnitude that what you've just done this week will help so many people. And it's so important for people in your position that have a big following to get this out on live stream, because as I said, I'll say it again, until everybody makes this a topic that's safe or comfortable to talk about, we're not going to be able to slow this down. And unfortunately, with this new drug that I just talked about earlier, Suvia coming out, I have a feeling this crisis is going to get worse before it gets better. And until we as a group, as Americans, hey, we're powerful and proud people. Shit, and get over this stigma thing. We need to talk about this and put a stop to it. That's it. And we need help from people like you.
So anyway, if you guys are still on, or if you watch this on the replay, I'm going to be uploading to YouTube, Amazon Prime. It'll be available in a couple days. And I think a lot of proof in whether people are commenting or making themselves present on this video or not, or maybe you have no experience, or you don't know anyone, or you do know someone. You'd be amazed how many views the videos with opioids gets. I'm not talking about on Facebook. I'm talking about on YouTube and Amazon Prime. Millions. Because there's that many people searching for solutions. So I guess right now, for me, the goal is just get it out there. So anyway, thanks.
You're welcome.
I will be live tomorrow. So tomorrow is Friday, right? Is tomorrow Friday?
Tomorrow's Friday.
And I'm not going to tell you what topic yet. It's going to depend. I might throw something else in there that's really super important. Someone called me about last night. But anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 12:30.
Your signature.
I know, I was about to say. And don't forget, if you're not living on the edge of helping, I might change it. If you're not living on the edge of helping, you're taking up too much space.